Hi everyone, and thank you very much for taking the time to watch the Dissertation and Thesis Formatting and Submission workshop. The purpose of this workshop is to provide information about formatting your document, as well as the steps involved in actually submitting your document. My name is Amanda Wong. I work with Trina Ellerts in the Graduate Academic Affairs section of the Graduate Division. I handle students with last names A through L, and Trina handles students with last names M through Z. You can see our contact information here, our office hours, the location, as well as both of our email addresses. So before we begin, I want to quickly show you our website, which you can see here is graduate.ucr.edu. So this is the main page of the Graduate Division website. For dissertation and thesis submission, you're going to want to click Current Graduate Students, and then dissertation thesis submission. So this will kind of act as your home page for the submission process. It will walk you through every step that you'll need to take to format and submit your document, as well as the other steps for graduation. You'll see here we also have a filing resources page. This page contains the required paperwork for both PhD and master's degrees, as well as a Word template, LaTeX templates, margin and page number placement templates. Our sample preliminary pages that I'll be showing you in a moment are right here. You can also find the format workshop PowerPoint presentation here as well. We also have a copyright resources page. This page provides you with FAQs about copyright and fair use issues. So if you have questions about that, please use these resources. With copyright, you can also address those questions with your committee as well as a librarian. The next link here is ETD FAQs. So this walks you through the ProQuest website, which is used to submit for your format review as well as the final version of your dissertation. So if you have questions when you're creating your ProQuest profile, you can look here and your question will probably be answered there. Last is the deadlines link. So this gives you a list of the upcoming deadlines for the different quarters. So I wanted to quickly cover some general resources that are available to you. As most of you probably know, there is a graduate community iLearn course. Here we list information about fellowship opportunities, job opportunities, things like that. There is also a LaTeX discussion board there for you. The Grad Success Office in the Graduate Division also has a Graduate Writing Center. And the Writing Center offers dissertation writing support for you. There is also a dissertation support group through the Counseling Center, and you can see that information right there. Okay, so let's talk about the format of your document. The first rule is that the style of your document must conform to Graduate Division format requirements. That being said, the style is still largely up to the discretion of your committee, as long as it conforms to those formatting rules of the Graduate Division that we're going to talk about and are laid out in detail in the format guide. Many students choose to use a journal or scientific format where they're combining numerous articles that they've published into the dissertation. If you decide to use that format, make sure that your document is consistent throughout, and also that you include a general introduction and conclusion that ties all of those different articles together. Okay, so here is a list of the preliminary pages that you're going to be including in your document. The first is the title page, and I want to show you an example of that here. Again, you can find the sample preliminary pages on the filing resources page of our website. So basically your title page should look exactly like this. You'll see we have the UCR header in all caps at the top, your dissertation title, where any word with 4 or more letters, the first letter is capitalized. then a dissertation submitted in partial satisfaction of the requirements for the degree of phrase. For anyone who is doing a master's thesis, you're going to replace the word dissertation with thesis. Then comes your degree name, so Doctor of Philosophy, Master of Arts, Master of Science, and then your major name, which, a little note here, your major name isn't necessarily your department name. So with this example, the Department of Physics and Astronomy offers a PhD degree in physics, so make sure that is your major name. By, and then your official name as it is on file with the registrar's office. So that needs to match the registrar's office records exactly. So if you have your middle name listed, if you have your middle initial, that needs to match. Then the conferral date. So for spring 2016, that's June 2016. Then you'll see your approved dissertation or thesis committee listed at the bottom left there. The next preliminary page that you are going to include is the copyright page. This page is optional, but it is highly recommended that you do include it. Fairly simple, just those 3 lines: copyright by, your official name, and then the conferral year. The next page is required for everyone. It is the signature approval page. It just says the dissertation of, and then your official name is approved, with the signature lines for your committee members to sign. If you have 4 committee members, then you should have 4 signature lines here. And I think this would be a good spot to talk about the signature approval page in a little bit more detail. So in your document that you're going to upload to ProQuest, you will include a blank version of this page, meaning you will not have the signatures in your electronic document. You are also required to submit a hard copy of this page with the original signature of each of your committee members on one signature page to the graduate division by 5 p.m. on the deadline day. So that's something you're going to want to think about in advance of how you're going to accomplish that, because it can get quite complicated, especially before summer or before quarter breaks, where faculty leave the country, they're all over the place, and you're having to mail your signature page everywhere. So just have a plan of action about how you're going to accomplish getting all those signatures on a signature approval page to us by the deadline. So next is the acknowledgements page. This is optional, but again, it is highly recommended. This is more of a professional kind of thank you section where you're acknowledging, anything that has been published elsewhere if that's necessary. You're acknowledging your committee, any funding sources that you've had. So that's a professional kind of thank you section. The dedication page is also optional. And this, is usually much shorter than the acknowledgements and more of a personal thank you section. Next is the abstract page. This is required if you're doing a PhD. It is optional for master's students. As you can see, it's somewhat similar to the title page. Abstract of the dissertation or thesis, all in caps at the top. Then your dissertation title, by your official name, your degree name, and your major again, University of California, Riverside, and then your conferral date, and then just your chairperson is listed on the abstract page. You will then begin typing your abstract under that header, and it should be double spaced. It should also be limited to about 350 words, and the reason for that is so that it will fit properly into Dissertation Abstracts International. So the next preliminary page is the table of contents, which is required for everyone. There's not really any specific formatting that's required. It just needs to generally look like a table of contents. So, the chapter, title, or number, and then the page number. that's fine. Again, no specific formatting requirements with that. So however you want to accomplish that is fine. Next will come your lists. So if you have figures throughout your document and or tables throughout your document, things like that, then you'll need to provide a list of those items after the table of contents. If you have, for example, both figures and tables, then you'll need to provide a separate list of each of those items. So you'll have list of figures and then starting on a separate page, list of tables. Next will come your preface or foreword. Again, this is another optional section. It's not used very often, but if you want to include that, you can do that there after your lists. Okay, so let's talk about the pagination of your document. So basically, there are 3 separate sections. Your title, copyright, and signature page count in the pagination, but they do not have printed page numbers. The next section, which includes the remainder of your preliminary pages, will be numbered using lowercase Roman numerals. So, for example, you have your title, copyright, and signature page, which are numbers 1, 2, and 3, but with no printed page numbers. Then usually would come your acknowledgements page, and that would begin with lowercase Roman numeral 4, so IV. The last section is the main body of your document, which will begin with regular numbers, so that will begin with page number 1. This can be somewhat challenging to achieve sometimes, so we do have resources for you. We have templates on the filing resources page of our website that has this pagination already built into them. Another recommendation to achieve this is to create 3 separate files. So, one file with no pagination, one file with lowercase Roman numeral pagination, and one file with your regular numbers. Keep those documents separate and then combine them into one PDF to upload to the ProQuest website. So if you're doing this on a Mac, you can use Preview. With a PC, I know there are many free PDF combining software programs that you can get in order to combine those separate files into one PDF. So your margins. The margins must be 1.5 inches and on the top and the left, and 1 inch on the bottom and right. So these need to be your margins on every page of your document. Next are widows and orphans. We want to avoid these as much as possible. Here's an example of what that looks like. So you see the widow line by itself at the top of the page there, and the orphan line by itself at the bottom of the page there. So most of the time, software programs can prevent this from happening for you. The issue that we see more often than this is actually, an orphan header. So make sure that, if your heading was at the bottom of the page by itself there, make sure you move that to the next page. Okay, let's talk about some table and figure examples of how they can be included in your document. So here you see a figure embedded into the text of the document. This is perfectly a fine option to include a figure in this way. You'll see that there is enough space between the figure and the text, so it's clear to the reader what's going on. Here is a figure and a caption on its own page. Clearly this figure is too large to be embedded within the text of the dissertation, so it's been given its own page with the figure as well there. Here you'll see a caption and a figure separately on their own pages. You have a very large figure as well as a very long caption. They can't fit on the same page. We definitely don't want to try to embed these within the text. So they've each been given their own separate page here to make it clear for the reader. Here is an example of a landscape table. The important thing to note here is that though your table is landscape, your page number still needs to be portrait style, and your margins still need to be 1.5 inches on the top and the left and 1 inch on the bottom and right when the page is looked at in portrait style like this. So again, we have a template on our website that already has a landscape page with a portrait page number built into it. So please use that resource if you need to do that. So the spacing of your document should be double spaced. Of course, you saw in the preliminary pages there was some single spacing there that we want you to do. You can also single space any table or figure captions, as well as any long quotes you may be including. The type size, there's not a strict requirement for that, as long as it's legible and consistent throughout your document. Usually we're looking for 10, 11, or 12-point font. Any font style you would like to use is okay as long as it is legible and consistent. Use of color is also acceptable. The text should mostly be black unless you're trying to point out a hyperlink, but color in tables and figures is perfectly acceptable. So here are some resources for formatting again that I talked about earlier. You can find those on our filing resources page. So we have the templates there, the template for a portrait style page number on a landscape page. So please make use of those resources. Okay, so now let's talk about how to actually submit your document to the ProQuest website, as well as the other steps required for graduation. So in order to graduate, you need to be advanced to candidacy. This happens slightly differently for master's and PhD students. So for master's students, that means that you have submitted the application for candidacy, which can be found on the Graduate Division website, at the beginning of the quarter that you plan to graduate. For PhD students, that means that you have completed all of your coursework as well as your written and oral qualifying examinations, and you have advanced to candidacy that way. You must have an approved dissertation or thesis committee. So this is done at the time that you advance to candidacy. If your committee has changed since then you need to have gotten that change approved through the Graduate Division. So if you're not sure, you can contact Trina or I, and we can check on that for you, because we'll need to get any changes approved prior to your graduation. You also need to be a student in order to graduate. So that means you are either paid and enrolled for the quarter that you're going to graduate, or you're on filing fee status. A little bit more detail on filing fee status here. Filing fee status occurs in lieu of registration. It is not required, but it is a good option for a lot of students. The application for filing fee status is on the Graduate Division website in the Forms section. When you're on filing fee status, you are not enrolled in any coursework. It's meant to be your last quarter in the program, where you're just finishing up your final defense and your dissertation, basically. The cost for academic year 15-16 is $170, so that is half of the student services fee. A couple things to think about if you are interested in doing filing fee status. It is a good option for a lot of students, but it's not something that every student chooses to take advantage of, because when you're on filing fee status, you are not enrolled in any units. So that means that you can't be employed in any title code that requires enrollment, such as a TA or GSR. Another thing to think about is any student loans you may have may come due more quickly because, again, you're not enrolled in any units. Filing fee can only be used once, and like I said, is meant to be your final quarter in the program. Okay, so let's talk about the steps that you'll need to go through in order to graduate. So step 1 is to submit your dissertation or thesis for format review at least 2 weeks prior to the final deadline, and you'll do that you'll upload the document as one PDF on the ProQuest website, which I will walk you through in detail in a moment. Once you upload your document for format review, Trina or I will get back to you within 24 hours with any formatting changes that need to be made. Again, I'm going to walk you through this in detail, but when you're uploading your document for format review, you have options about ordering bound copies of your dissertation and having ProQuest assist you with registering your copyright. So these are things you're going to need to think about at the time that you're uploading your document for format review, because you will not be able to change those options later. Step 2 is to submit the required paperwork. So for the PhD degree, that includes the signature approval page, the final defense form, if that's required. For PhDs, that's required of everyone except English and history. That also includes the acknowledgement of previously published material, if that's applicable to you, which I'll talk more about that later. For master's students, that the required paperwork includes, again, the signature approval page, the report of final defense for masters, if that's required, and that should be listed on your advancement letter if a final defense is required for you. Again, as well as the acknowledgement of previously published material, if applicable to your situation. The required paperwork needs to be submitted to our office by 5 p.m. on the deadline day. The last step of the process is to then upload the final version of your document, and again, you will do that through the ProQuest website that I will walk you through. So more about the final defense here. It's required for most programs. All committee members must be physically present at the final defense. We do have this new remote participation option, but that is only to be used in emergency circumstances, and it must be approved by the graduate division in advance. The paperwork that goes along with the final defense for the PhD degree is the Form 5 Report of Final Examinations for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, which you can find on the Filing Resources page of our website. For master's students, it's the Report of Final Defense for the master's degree, which again is in that required paperwork section on the Filing Resources page. The final defense must be completed by the deadline day. So it must be completed by, the last day of the quarter that you're trying to graduate in. Another important note here, sometimes there's some confusion with the final defense form and the signature page. Those are two separate items. So the final defense form is approving of your final oral examination, while the signature approval page is that page that you create with, for example, the 3 lines if you have 3 committee members that they're signing there. So those are two separate things. The signature approval page is approving of your written document, while the final defense form is approving the oral presentation. So I mentioned the acknowledgement of previously published material as part of the required paperwork for graduation. This is required if you are using material in your document that you yourself have published elsewhere. This is, again, on the Filing Resources page of our website in that required paperwork section. So the purpose of this form is just to make sure that you and your chairperson and your committee are on the same page about what exactly is going into your dissertation. You are welcome to submit that to us hard copy. It can also be uploaded in the administrative documents section of the ProQuest site that I will show you in a second here. So I also want to make the distinction because there's some confusion sometimes about the acknowledgement of previously published material versus copyright permission. The acknowledgement of previously published material refers to material that you yourself have published elsewhere and are including in your dissertation. Copyright permission may be necessary if you're using material in your dissertation that you do not hold the copyright for. So if you're using certain figures that someone else created, for example, then you may need to request copyright permission and provide that permission in the process when you're submitting your document through ProQuest. So again, we have a copyright resources page on our website to help you determine if you're using material that someone else holds the copyright to. Is it necessary for me to get permission? And if I do need to get permission, how do I go about doing that? So please use that resource. Okay, before we get into actually submitting the document in ProQuest, I want to talk a little bit about where your document is actually going to go, because we're going to be making decisions about how we want the document to be treated in each of these places when we're uploading in ProQuest. So when you submit your document in ProQuest, it's going to 3 different places. It's going to the ProQuest database of theses and dissertations, as well as the UCR library. And lastly, it is going to eScholarship, which is the UC-wide institutional repository. So you're making separate selections about how your document will behave in each of those places when you're uploading in ProQuest. A note about eScholarship is that it is an open access repository. It's a UC-wide institutional repository where all UC dissertations and faculty publications, all of that is available on eScholarship. So this is the ProQuest website, and there is a link to this on the dissertation thesis submission section of our website, so you can get here that way. Once you create your profile, this is what you see. First is the instructions page, so it's just giving you some general information, as well as letting you know the items you should have on hand as part of the submission process. So the first decisions we need to make are in regards to how our document is going to behave in ProQuest. So here we have the option between traditional publishing and open access publishing. The difference between those are with traditional publishing, in order to gain access to the full text of your ProQuest document, users will need to pay for that and you will receive royalties. Whereas with open access publishing, anyone can have access to the full text of your document. Most students choose traditional publishing. You'll see that open access publishing has a $95 fee. An important note here is that if you do want your document to be widely available, so you are thinking about choosing open access publishing, like I mentioned earlier, your document is also going to eScholarship, which is the UC institutional repository, and that is an open access repository. So next, you have the option of whether or not you would like major search engines to be able to discover the ProQuest entry of your dissertation. So you can either select yes or no there, that's completely up to you. Here you see we have the option to delay the release of our document. So you're selecting either yes, I want my work immediately available, or no, I want to delay the release of my document. So you have the option between 6 months, 1 year, and 2 years. You can request up to a 5-year delay. You'll have to put a note to the administrator like I did here. Anything beyond 2 years is approved on a case-by-case basis. So if you want more than 2 years, just let us know here, and then we'll contact you requesting some additional information. Next are your options for the institutional repository. So these are your publishing options with eScholarship. Again, here you're deciding whether or not you want the release of your document delayed. So this should match any delay that you chose in the ProQuest publishing options. So either yes, I want my work immediately available, or no, I do not. Again, the same options: 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and you can request up to a 5-year delay. Next, you have the option to apply a Creative Commons license to your document. Again, this is completely optional. Creative Commons licenses are useful for authors who want their work widely available. They want their work to be easily distributed as well as built upon. They have a number of different licenses for you to choose from. You can see what each of those means right there. You can also go to the Creative Commons website. They have a tool that, if you're interested in a Creative Commons license, can walk you through which license would be the most appropriate for your situation. In the PDF section, that's where you're going to actually upload your dissertation. So you're going to upload your document as one PDF here. This is also the section where you will include any copyright permission documents that are necessary for you. In the supplemental files section, you can include any material that is relevant to your document but doesn't necessarily need to be a part of your document. So for example, sometimes education students have long surveys that they include here. Sometimes computer science students have pages of code that they include here. So that's optional, but if that's necessary for you, you can include any supplemental files here. Those files will follow your document in ProQuest, in the library, and in eScholarship. The administrative documents section is where you can upload the acknowledgement of previously published material if that's necessary for you. Like I mentioned earlier, you can upload that document here, or if you prefer, you can submit it hard copy to us. Next, you have the option of having ProQuest assist you in registering the copyright of your document. You automatically hold the copyright to your work. Registering the copyright with the Library of Congress just gives you some additional legal recourse were someone to use your work without your permission. So ProQuest can assist you with that process if you choose here. This is optional. You can register the copyright on your own if you choose, or you do not have to register the copyright at all. Next, you have the option to order bound copies through ProQuest. Again, this is entirely optional. Your official dissertation is the electronic version that is submitted. So it is not required by the graduate division to submit any hard copies. You can order hard copies through ProQuest here if you choose. You can also order copies through Printing and Reprographics on campus. They are able to, do UC specific things like, bind it with the UC seal, things like that. You can also order copies however you choose. So if you want to go to Kinko's, however you want to make copies is fine, because again, your official version is the electronic version. So lastly, you'll need to, once you've gone through all the steps and all the boxes on the left-hand side are checked, you'll need to actually click submit. That kind of freaks students out sometimes because they think, oh, this isn't my final version, I'm not ready to submit. Don't worry, you're actually not able to submit to the publisher. By clicking submit, all that does is send Trina and I an email letting us know that you uploaded and that we need to go in and check your formatting. So you need to click submit, otherwise we will not know that you uploaded. So that is the submission process in the ProQuest website. just want to go through a very brief overview again of the steps required to graduate. So step number 1, we want to see your dissertation for format review 2 weeks prior to the final deadline. Step number 2 is to submit the required paperwork. You can find a list of the required paperwork for both PhD and master's degrees on the filing resources page of our website. Lastly is to make any format changes that the graduate division has requested, in addition to any changes that your committee has requested, and upload the final version of your dissertation in ProQuest by 5 p.m. on the deadline day. So we have a list of some upcoming deadlines here. You can find a list of future deadlines on our website. The link for that is right there. So once you complete all of the requirements, either Trina or I will email you a letter of completion. That letter will contain both the exact date that you completed all the requirements for the degree, as well as the conferral date of the degree, which is the same for all students in any given quarter. The degree will be posted to your transcript by the registrar's office about 6 to 8 weeks after the conferral date. If you'd like to order your transcript, you can do that through Growl. It is not ordered for you automatically. The diploma will take about 5 to 6 months after the conferral date to be available. That is also handled by the registrar's office. What will happen is once your diploma is ready, the registrar's office will send an email to your UCR email account letting you know. And at that time, you can either go to their office to pick it up or arrange with them to have it mailed to you. Another couple notes here, you will always have access to Growl and RMail. So as long as you keep using your RMail, that should stay active for you. Thank you everyone very much for taking the time to watch this video. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions about formatting or the submission of your document or other requirements for graduation. We want to help you and we want to make this process go as smoothly as we can for you.